Welcome to the Pop Recap, where we delve deep into the stories shaping pop culture. Today, we bring you an in-depth analysis of the pivotal witnesses in the ongoing federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, who faces serious allegations including sex trafficking and racketeering. Sean Diddy Combs, once a symbol of success in hip-hop, fashion, and entrepreneurship, is now at the center of one of the most high-profile federal trials in modern entertainment history. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Combs has built an empire that includes Bad Boy Records, the Sean John clothing line, and a range of business ventures in music, spirits, and media. But today, the focus isn't on his accolades. It's on a set of deeply disturbing allegations that paint a far darker picture of the mogul's legacy. Combs is facing federal charges under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, better known as RICO. Prosecutors allege that he led a criminal enterprise for over 20 years, engaging in a coordinated pattern of illegal behavior that includes sex trafficking, drug distribution, witness intimidation, and financial coercion. The case is being tried in Manhattan federal court, and the prosecution has built its case around a series of testimonies from individuals once embedded in Combs' private and professional life. These witnesses, ranging from ex-girlfriends and employees to musicians and assistants, have come forward with powerful, detailed, and often traumatic accounts of alleged abuse, manipulation, and organized misconduct. What makes this trial especially significant is its broader cultural implications. This isn't just about one man's actions, it's about how power and influence in the entertainment industry can potentially be used to shield long-term systemic abuse. The case has drawn comparisons to previous scandals involving Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly, both of whom were brought down by a wave of testimonies that finally cracked open years of silence and secrecy. Diddy's legal team has denied all allegations, framing the case as a malicious campaign fueled by opportunism and sensationalism. They argue that the accusations are exaggerated or fabricated, aimed at dismantling a public figure who has become a target in the post-Me Too era. Still, with mounting evidence, high-profile testimonies, and federal investigators combing through years of material, including financial records, security footage, and eyewitness statements, the trial has already become one of the most consequential legal battles in the history of hip-hop and celebrity culture. In this video, we'll take you witness by witness, unpacking their roles, what they claim happened, and how their testimonies could shape the outcome of this case. We aim to provide an accurate, respectful, and comprehensive look into the allegations and the system that allowed them to persist for so long, if proven true. Let's begin by examining the testimony of one of the most critical witnesses, Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former long-term partner, whose lawsuit arguably opened the floodgates for this criminal investigation. One of the most pivotal testimonies in the case comes from Cassandra Ventura, known to the world as Cassie, a singer, model, and actress who was once signed to Diddy's label, Bad Boy Records. Cassie and Combs were romantically involved for over a decade, from around 2007 until their public breakup in 2018. But behind the glitz of red carpets and music videos, Cassie alleges a deeply disturbing reality, a relationship rooted in manipulation, fear, and systematic abuse. Cassie's account, first brought into public view through a civil lawsuit filed in late 2023, sent shockwaves through the industry. The suit, which was settled just 1 day after filing, detailed years of physical violence, emotional manipulation, drug use, and sexual coercion. While that civil case was resolved, her cooperation with federal investigators helped catalyze the criminal case now unfolding. In her testimony to the grand jury and in interviews with federal prosecutors, Cassie described being coerced into participating in what were referred to as freak-offs, exclusive drug-fueled sex parties allegedly arranged and controlled by Combs. She claimed she was forced to take substances like MDMA and ketamine before being made to engage in sexual acts with strangers, often under Combs' watchful direction. In some cases, these events were allegedly recorded without her full consent. Cassie also recounted frequent episodes of physical violence, including being beaten by Combs during arguments. One alleged incident occurred in a hotel in Los Angeles, where she says Combs punched her in the face and threatened her life. She described a pattern of control, where Combs allegedly monitored her communications, movements, and business decisions. Even her career choices, such as whether to release music or appear in fund certain campaigns were, according to her, dictated by Combs' approval. One of the most chilling elements of her account involves an incident where Combs reportedly exploded in a jealous rage upon learning she had communicated with another male artist. Later revealed to be Kid Cudi, that incident ties directly into other witness accounts and will be covered in the next segment. Cassie's decision to come forward is being viewed by legal experts and survivor advocates as a watershed moment, comparable to the role that Andrea Constant played in the prosecution of Bill Cosby or that of multiple actresses in the Harvey Weinstein trial. By breaking the silence on what she endured, Cassie not only opened the door for law enforcement scrutiny, but also encouraged other alleged victims and former employees to speak out. Prosecutors say her testimony provides a foundational narrative, one that maps out a timeline of escalating abuse and power misuse, and connects many of the dots that other witnesses have corroborated. Her voice, once silenced by fear and industry power dynamics, is now one of the most compelling in the courtroom. Coming up, we examine the testimony of Kid Cudi, whose claims of intimidation and violence draw a chilling connection between personal vendettas and criminal action. Our next witness brings a chilling allegation that underscores the extreme lengths Sean Diddy Combs may have gone to in order to control those around him and punish those he perceived as threats. Rapper and actor Kid Cudi, born Scott Mescudi, testified about a disturbing event that took place in 2012. An incident that until now had remained largely out of the public spotlight. According to Cudi's testimony, he awoke one morning to news that his Porsche 911 had been set on fire outside his home in Los Angeles. Investigators at the time determined that the blaze was caused by a Molotov cocktail, a crude but deadly firebomb. Although no official charges were ever filed in connection to the incident, Cudi told federal investigators in 2024 that he believed Diddy was behind the attack. Why? The answer may lie in what prosecutors allege was a deeply rooted jealousy and obsession over Cassie Ventura, Combs' then-girlfriend. Cudi admitted under oath that he had a brief romantic relationship with Cassie around the time she and Combs were reportedly going through a rough patch. Cassie, in her own testimony, had already stated that Diddy grew increasingly paranoid and volatile whenever she interacted with other men in the industry, and that Combs specifically threatened Kid Cudi's life, allegedly saying something to the effect of, "If I ever catch him around you again, I'll blow up his car." At the time, few took that threat literally, but Cudi now says that after the firebombing of his Porsche, he was convinced the threat was real and realized how dangerous Combs could be. In addition to recounting the incident, Cudi also described a subsequent meeting with Combs at Soho House in West Hollywood. He characterized Combs' behavior as off-putting, unsettling, and weird, stating that Diddy made veiled references to Cassie and offered him water in what Cudi described as a bizarre and staged interaction. The underlying tension, he said, was palpable. Legal analysts suggest that Cudi's testimony serves as a corroborating link between Cassie's broader claims of Diddy's jealousy and violent behavior, and a tangible, potentially criminal act of intimidation. While the federal case is primarily focused on broader charges of sex trafficking, abuse, and conspiracy, the alleged arson adds weight to the prosecution's argument that Combs operated in a climate of fear, retaliation, and unchecked power. What makes Cudi's testimony even more compelling is that he's not a disgruntled employee or a former business associate. He's a respected artist in his own right and has generally avoided controversy. His involvement in the trial, therefore, is being seen by experts as particularly credible and damaging. Federal prosecutors are expected to use Cudi's story not only to show Combs' vindictiveness, but also to highlight a pattern of silencing and scaring off perceived threats, whether they be romantic rivals, business dissenters, or victims seeking to come forward. As the trial progresses, it's becoming increasingly clear that this case is about more than individual claims. It's about a culture of intimidation allegedly orchestrated by one of the most powerful men in music, and how those who dared to step outside of his control often paid a terrifying price. Up next, we take a closer look at Capricorn Clark, a former insider who helped run Combs' empire and has now stepped forward with explosive new testimony. The next key witness in the federal case against Sean Diddy Combs is Capricorn Clark, a woman who once held a powerful position within Combs' empire as his former assistant and later marketing director. For years, Clark worked closely with Combs, managing campaigns, coordinating events, and overseeing brand partnerships for his multiple ventures, including Bad Boy Entertainment and Sean John. But what makes Clark's testimony so explosive is not her resume. It's what she claims she was forced to do while working under Combs' influence. According to sworn testimony, Clark alleges that she was coerced into participating in an unlawful break-in at the home of rapper Kid Cudi, an incident that federal prosecutors now suspect may be connected to the arson attack on Cudi's Porsche in 2012. Clark stated that the break-in was orchestrated and ordered directly by Combs, who believed Cudi had disrespected him by being involved with Cassie Ventura, Combs' then-girlfriend. In her statement, Clark described how she was pressured and manipulated into acting against her moral judgment. She claimed Combs would frequently use a mix of fear, flattery, and financial control to keep his inner circle obedient. He allegedly framed the break-in not as a crime, but as a message, something he said needed to be done to maintain order. The break-in incident, previously unknown to the public, has raised alarm bells among legal analysts, suggesting that Combs' reach extended far beyond psychological abuse and into physical intimidation carried out through his employees and associates. But Clark's testimony didn't stop there. She also corroborated Cassie Ventura's explosive allegations, supporting the narrative that Diddy engaged in abusive, manipulative, and controlling behavior behind closed doors. Clark revealed that she witnessed Combs verbally assaulting Cassie, using degrading language and often referring to her in deeply dehumanizing terms. She described a toxic atmosphere where Combs' employees, particularly women, were expected to comply with his whims or risk being ostracized, fired, or worse. Clark's first-hand accounts provided the court with deep insight into the culture of Combs' inner circle, an environment she characterized as one governed by fear, blurred boundaries, and absolute loyalty. According to her, it was not unusual for employees to be invited or pressured into attending drug-fueled parties that mirrored the so-called freak-offs Cassie described in her testimony. Refusing to participate could mean losing your job or being blacklisted from the industry altogether. One of the most haunting elements of Clark's testimony came when she described Combs as a man who thrived on chaos, someone who intentionally fostered a culture of confusion and instability so he could maintain dominance over everyone around him. Legal experts say Clark's testimony is critical because it connects the dots between multiple allegations, arson, intimidation, abuse, and places Combs at the center of a carefully constructed power structure that enabled his alleged behavior to go unchecked for years. Unlike some other witnesses who were romantic partners or victims, Clark was a professional insider, and her credibility as a corporate executive lends serious weight to her claims. In a powerful closing to her testimony, Clark expressed regret over her role in facilitating some of Combs' actions. But she also stated she now feels a moral obligation to speak out, not just for herself, but for others who were harmed during their time within the Combs organization. Her emotional and detailed account has added another crucial layer to the trial, reinforcing the prosecution's depiction of a man who used his fame, wealth, and influence to create a system of abuse, fear, and control. Coming up next, we examine the roles of George Kaplan and David James, two former personal assistants whose testimonies provide even more insight into the everyday operations of Combs' world and how deeply embedded the alleged misconduct really was. As the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs continues, more members of his former inner circle are stepping forward to provide critical testimony. Among them are George Kaplan and David James, both of whom served as personal assistants to Combs at different times over the past 2 decades. Their testimonies offer an inside look into the daily operations of Combs' world and the alleged misconduct that permeated it. George Kaplan, who worked closely with Combs throughout the early 2000s, described a workplace environment that was, in his words, erratic, high pressure, and morally questionable. He recounted being asked to perform tasks that went well beyond the responsibilities of a personal assistant, from procuring prescription drugs and party supplies, to coordinating luxury hotel rooms for private, drug-fueled events, some of which involved non-disclosure agreements and confiscated cell phones to ensure secrecy. Kaplan testified that many of these events were not just celebrity parties, but what prosecutors have come to refer to as controlled environments, exclusive gatherings where participants, often young women, were allegedly coerced or manipulated into engaging in sexual activities, often under the influence of alcohol or narcotics. He claimed that Combs would use his status, wealth, and security detail to shield these events from scrutiny, ensuring that no detail ever leaked to the press or the authorities. Perhaps most disturbingly, Kaplan described how Combs' inner staff operated under what he called a code of silence. Employees were allegedly threatened, humiliated, or financially penalized if they disobeyed or questioned his behavior. Kaplan stated that loyalty was rewarded, but stepping out of line could lead to swift and brutal consequences, including public verbal abuse, firing, or being blacklisted in the industry. Next, David James, who worked for Combs in more recent years, provided testimony that echoed Kaplan's experience, but also introduced new, more current allegations. James revealed that in addition to being tasked with typical assistant duties, he was repeatedly ordered to transport duffel bags filled with cash, which prosecutors believe may be connected to untraceable payments tied to Combs' alleged illegal activities. James also testified about facilitating hotel bookings and travel arrangements for so-called business meetings that often coincided with large deliveries of alcohol, luxury clothing, and other materials. These meetings, he claimed, frequently involved young women flown in from out of state, some of whom appeared visibly under the influence or intimidated. One of James' most damning assertions was that Combs maintained files or records on many of these women, allegedly as a means of control, holding sensitive information, videos, or photos that could be used against them. According to both Kaplan and James, Combs kept a tight, almost militarized level of control over his properties, vehicles, and staff. Private security guards were instructed to monitor people inside his residences. Surveillance cameras were said to be strategically placed, and personal phones were often confiscated during key events. Their testimonies helped paint a detailed, consistent picture of a system that was allegedly designed to enable, protect, and perpetuate abusive behaviors, with Combs at the center. Unlike public-facing scandals or allegations based on rumor, these are first-hand, behind-the-scenes accounts from men who were there when it happened, who drove the cars, arranged the rooms, and cleaned up the messes. Legal analysts have pointed out that while Kaplan and James may not be direct victims of abuse, their value to the prosecution lies in their corroborative power. Their testimonies fill in the logistical gaps, showing how Combs allegedly managed to build a world where his actions could go unchecked and even protected by his own staff. Their words reinforce a common thread emerging throughout the trial, that the abuse and coercion weren't just impulsive acts. They were, according to these witnesses, part of a larger system of control. Coming up next, we dive into the testimony of expert witnesses, including forensic psychologist Dr. Dawn Hughes and federal agents, whose insights provide both psychological and investigative context to this complex and high-profile case. As the courtroom drama unfolds, the prosecution has called upon several expert witnesses and law enforcement officials to provide crucial context and tangible evidence that supports the testimonies given by former associates and victims alike. One of the most impactful expert testimonies has come from Dr. Dawn Hughes, a highly respected forensic psychologist with decades of experience in trauma and abuse cases. Dr. Hughes was brought in to help the court understand the complex psychological dynamics often observed in victims of prolonged abuse and coercion. In her detailed report and courtroom testimony, Dr. Hughes explained how victims of abusive relationships, particularly those involving powerful figures like Sean Diddy Combs, often exhibit behaviors that may seem contradictory or confusing to outsiders. She discussed the phenomenon of trauma bonding, where victims develop a psychological attachment to their abusers as a survival mechanism. This, she explained, can lead victims to stay silent, minimize their experiences, or even defend their abusers publicly. Dr. Hughes also highlighted how fear, manipulation, and threats are commonly used tools by perpetrators to maintain control, making it extremely difficult for victims to come forward or seek help. Her expert analysis helped frame the testimonies of Cassie Ventura, Capricorn Clark, and others in a clinical light, providing the jury with a deeper understanding of why victims might hesitate or behave in ways that could otherwise be misinterpreted. Alongside psychological expertise, Special Agent Gerard Gannon from the Federal Investigation Team took the stand to detail the physical evidence uncovered during raids on Combs' residences and business properties. Agent Gannon described how law enforcement executed multiple search warrants, seizing a wide array of items that paint a stark picture of the defendant's lifestyle and alleged criminal enterprise. Among the items recovered were unregistered firearms, narcotics, including prescription medications and illicit substances, as well as large sums of cash in various denominations. The agent testified that some of the cash was found stuffed in duffel bags and hidden compartments, raising questions about its intended use. Moreover, the search yielded electronic devices, phones, hard drives, and computers that contained messages, videos, and documents critical to the investigation. Special Agent Gannon explained how digital forensics teams worked to extract and analyze this data, which corroborated some of the witness testimonies about secretive communications, event planning, and possible evidence of intimidation tactics. He also discussed the surveillance footage recovered from security cameras installed at Combs' homes and offices, which investigators believe could be used to verify timelines and movements of key individuals during alleged incidents of abuse or coercion. These testimonies from law enforcement are pivotal because they move beyond hearsay or personal recollections, offering concrete, physical proof that supports the prosecution's narrative. The presence of weapons and drugs, coupled with digital evidence, strengthens the argument that Combs maintained an environment conducive to the alleged criminal conduct. Experts and investigators together help the jury piece together not just the stories, but the reality behind the facade, demonstrating the extensive measures allegedly taken by Combs to control his environment, silence dissent, and perpetuate his enterprise. Up next, we'll explore the overall impact these testimonies have had on the trial so far and what this could mean for the future of this high-profile case. The cumulative weight of these powerful testimonies has profoundly shaped the course of the trial against Sean Diddy Combs. Each witness, from former romantic partners to close associates and expert analysts, has contributed vital pieces to a complex puzzle, painting a multifaceted and detailed portrait of an alleged criminal enterprise that thrived on coercion, control, and abuse. The prosecution has skillfully woven these narratives into a cohesive argument that Combs not only presided over, but actively orchestrated a systematic network designed to exploit and intimidate those within his sphere of influence. These testimonies offer more than isolated incidents. They suggest a pattern of behavior spanning years, marked by intimidation tactics, physical violence, psychological manipulation, and a culture of silence enforced through fear. Importantly, the corroboration among witnesses adds credibility to their accounts, with multiple sources describing consistent themes of abuse, threats, and control, painting Combs as a figure who allegedly leveraged his power to maintain dominance and suppress dissent. Moreover, the expert insights provided essential context, helping the jury understand the often complex psychological effects experienced by victims, which may explain behaviors such as reluctance to speak out or continued association despite abuse. The physical and digital evidence presented by law enforcement further anchors the prosecution's case, moving it beyond testimonial allegations to tangible proof of wrongdoing. This includes the seizure of weapons, narcotics, and incriminating communications, which collectively strengthen the narrative of a well-organized and secretive operation. However, as with any high-profile trial, defense attorneys have challenged the credibility of these witnesses, arguing inconsistencies and motivations to undermine their testimonies. The jury must navigate these conflicting narratives carefully to arrive at a verdict based on the totality of evidence presented. The trial remains ongoing, and each new testimony adds layers to an already intricate case that has captivated the public and media alike. The outcome could have far-reaching implications, not only for Combs' personal and professional future, but also for broader conversations around power, accountability, and justice within the entertainment industry. As this landmark trial continues to unfold, the testimonies of these key witnesses will remain at the heart of the courtroom drama. Their stories, fraught with courage, pain, and resilience, will be scrutinized alongside mounting evidence as both sides present their closing arguments. For viewers and followers of this case, staying informed is essential, as new revelations and developments are expected in the coming weeks. We at the Pop Recap are committed to bringing you the most accurate, thorough, and timely updates, breaking down complex legal proceedings into clear and engaging content. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our ongoing coverage. From witness testimonies to courtroom strategies and verdict announcements, we'll keep you in the loop every step of the way. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more in-depth analysis on this and other major stories in the world of pop culture and beyond.